Yup, you read the title. You must be wondering how this even makes any sense. A plane flying faster than its own engines? What kind of physics-defying witchcraft is going on here? Well, no time to waste. Let's start at the beginning and break down this plane. In the 1960s, the Skunk Works team were working on a prototype of a plane they called the SR-71. It was built for one purpose, to outrun everything: missiles, enemy jets, radar locks, birds, and anything else in the sky. To do that, it needed an engine that could handle a speed no one had ever touched before. The result was the Pratt & Whitney G58, an engine so strange that even today, engineers still debate whether it should be classified as a turbojet, a hybrid, or basically a ramjet dressed in a turbojet costume. Now hold on, cause here's where it gets weird. From my research, the J58 behaves normally up until around Mach 2, doing regular engine things and accelerating the plane. Past that point, the airflow slamming into the aircraft becomes so strong that the engine needs to protect itself from the wind. So the SR-71 uses something called a variable geometry inlet spike. This is a long metal cone at the front of each engine with one goal in mind: to control shockwaves. As the plane goes faster, the spike moves backwards up to 66 centimeters, creating a stable shockwave pattern that slows the air from around Mach 3 all the way down to about Mach 0.5 before it enters the engine. So how is it going faster than its own engines then? Well, past Mach 2, the engine core, which is the spinning turbines, the compressors, and all the stuff you'd find in a normal jet engine, starts becoming less and less useful. By the time the SR-71 reaches its cruising speed, that being Mach 3.2, the engine core is doing surprisingly little. About 80% of the total thrust at Mach 3.2 doesn't come from the engine core at all, but from the inlet and bypass system alone. In other words, the airframe and the airflow are doing most of the driving, and not the engine. The J58 had special bypass ducts that sent enormous amounts of air around the engine directly to the afterburner, turning the whole propulsion system into a kind of pseudo-ramjet. So basically, the SR-71 was literally flying at a speed its engines couldn't actually go at. And not even just a little faster. It was going faster by Mach 1.2. That's 1.2 times the speed of sound. To scale this down and put it into our perspective, think of your feet as the engine of your body. That's like somehow sprinting at 80 kilometers an hour while your shoes barely touch the ground. This bizarre behavior is also why the SR-71 needs special fuel. Regular jet fuel would have evaporated, boiled, or literally caught fire in the tanks. So for this, they use JP7, a fuel with a high flash point. So much so that you could throw a match into one of the tanks and literally nothing would happen. The only way to ignite it is with a chemical called triethylborane. Yeah, that's about right. AKA TEB. This explodes on contact with air. Every time the pilot hit the afterburner, you'd hear a bang of a tiny TEB injection. The plane only carried about 600 shots of TEB, so turning the afterburner on and off was basically a limited ammo mechanic. Even the friction of air at Mach 3 heated the plane so much that the fuselage routinely reached 350 degrees Celsius. On top of this, the SR-71 leaked fuel while it was ground-bound, because the titanium panels only sealed properly when the entire aircraft expanded in flight. But despite all these quirks, the SR-71 accomplished its mission. During missions, it could simply outrun surface-to-air missiles. And from the records of it, it wasn't the engine that made the SR-71 legendary. It was how the engine and airframe cheated physics. The engine didn't propel the plane. The plane's speed propelled the engine. And now the world is lost. What even is an engine? Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.